can tell me nothing because he have to tell me.
Okay, well, y'all let me know. How long y'all supposed to wait after you have a baby to have sex? We earned that right. Oh, well, I told him being used to carry a life. See what I'm talking about? How long y'all supposed to wait after you have a baby to have intercourse with your mate? V said six weeks, and you said 6 months.
I didn't say anything.
Oh, I thought it was 2-3 months. I'm not sure. I don't know.
I don't think a doctor tell you anything. It's just
No, I think they do. Because infection, or they don't want you to get pregnant right away, because then you're still fertile right after the baby.
very. But I don't think a doctor. I've never known a doctor. Well, I don't know. No doctor told me that. It was just most of the time people say it takes 6 weeks to.
Kina said 6 weeks.
Yeah.
Belinda said abstinence.
That's what I was gonna say, Belinda.
Kim said 6 years. Really, Kim? Really? Come on now. Tasha says 6 weeks. Okay, so most of y'all know it to be 6 weeks. So I'm gonna go with 6 weeks myself. Let me ask you guys this. Well, Chandra, let me ask you first.
Oh Lord.
What are some of the struggles you face during your pregnancy?
Oof.
What were some of the tough points for you during your pregnancy? That same question for you guys. You're welcome to comment below so I can read it. What are some of the struggles or some of the craziest things you had to deal with while you were pregnant, or even through the delivery, through labor? I know construction. What is it?
Contractions.
I almost said construction. What are some of these things that you had to deal with while you were pregnant?
Well, I was sick during my pregnancy, so I actually almost had a miscarriage at my 5th month with my daughter.
Oh wow!
So, and if I could just be totally honest, actually, my daughter has a sister that's 6 months older than her.
Mm-hmm.
So I was in the hospital threatening a miscarriage, and her stepmother, which is not her stepmother at the time, was in the floor above or floor beneath, having her sister.
Oh wait, what?
Yeah. Yeah.
Wait, I didn't hear that. What happened?
I was in the hospital threatening a miscarriage. Yes, and her dad was not married to the lady at the time, and she was wherever the maternity ward was. She was actually having her sister.
Wow.
So my daughter has a sister that's 6 months older than her.
Wow.
Yeah, big wow.
Okay.
So,
that's why you say you stopped at one.
That's right.
Ah.
Mm-hmm.
Capiche.
Yes.
That had to be kind of hard on you.
Yes and no. I didn't know it until it was like I was getting ready to go home. Then it was like, oh, by the way, so and so is here, and she just had a baby. I'm like, oh, okay.
I'm sorry you had to go through that.
Yeah. So anyway, being bedridden, and then when my daughter was born, she was born with jaundice, and jaundice is abnormal function of the liver, so the baby is born like yellowish.
Oh, my brother had that.
Yeah. So she was born on Memorial Day weekend. And I lived in Lake Worth at the time, and with family dynamics, I cried like a baby because I was in the hospital. I had to have an emergency cesarean, so I'd never known natural birth. And so when it was time for her to go home, I'm like, I can't leave my baby here because, I'm not gonna be able to see her. No one's gonna bring me to see her because I couldn't drive or anything like that. And so they put this light on her that I had to bring home with me in order for me to bring her home when I went home.
So
Yeah, so that was the struggle of her being born. And then when she was born, she had a hole in her intestines, and they were supposed to do emergency surgery, and God miraculously healed her.
Wow.
So I had a lot of once again, that's why I stopped at one. Yeah, man, it was painful. It was painful, yeah.
Okay.
One was more than enough.
Sorry you had to go through that. Kina said couldn't eat anything. That was one of her struggles when she was pregnant. Couldn't eat anything. Latoya said she had difficulty sleeping, swelling feet and hands.
Yeah, I
Oh,
remember
now
that.
that she mentioned that. A lot of you guys have that. A lot of you women get that. The swelling of the feet.
Yeah. A lot of us get borderline with gestational diabetes.
The who?
Gestation diabetes, meaning because of the
Right,
fluid
right,
and everything
right,
else.
right.
Yeah.
And hopefully, in most cases, it goes away after the baby.
Sometimes yes, sometimes no.
That's not good.
Right.
That's not good. But and some of you guys don't hate me for this. Some of y'all get real ugly when y'all pregnant. Woo!
Actually, I thought I was cute. That's how I gained all this weight.
You was cute.
Because I actually lost weight when I was,
Man,
all the weight I gained was my baby. And when I didn't know to snap it back in once I had her. So I thought I was doing it. And then when I looked around, it was like bloop, bloop, blop, blop. I'm like, what happened?
Some of y'all look like, woo, who are you? And some of y'all get back to where you were or even better after the baby. And some of you guys stays ugly, but
you know what,
my business. I'm just saying. But even with the weight, I think that's one of the struggles that you guys go through as well with the weight.
Belinda said you got jokes, mister.
Belinda, you probably went through that, didn't you? It's okay. Just thank God you came back.
My friends are gonna kill me.
Because not everybody make it back. You know? But even with the weight gaining, you guys, a lot of you pregnancy take a toll on your bodies.
Oh yeah.
Gaining the weight, and some of you with fluctuating the weight, and some of you lose it after the baby. Some of you keep it. Some of you just keep a little bit of it, and some of it look good on some of y'all. You know what I mean? And some.
You trying to save yourself now?
Pardon?
You trying to save yourself?
I'm just keeping it real.
Oh, okay.
Like it or not, I will speak the truth. And some of y'all do good with the weight, even with the weight on while you're pregnant. And some of y'all just sloppy. But some of y'all carry it well, some of you don't, but that is part of motherhood. And I think I had this conversation before in some of the earlier shows when I talked to the men. So if there's any men listening right now, this message right here is for you guys. Some of these weight that these women put on, and some of them lose it after the pregnancy, some of them don't, but some of these weight that you guys put on, well, let me speak directly to the men. Some of these weight that the women put on is now also your weight, because you have contributed to this weight gaining. It's not that you're sitting around the house and just eating and got fat. Some of that is your weight. So if you was with her before she was pregnant and you got her pregnant and she gained this weight because of pregnancy, it is your job now to either help her lose it, be nice about it, or accept her, because this is now your weight. She's carrying her weight and your weight now. You should really say thank you. But that is your woman. You help put on that weight. Either you help her to take it off, or you love her the way she is. Because I for one can understand and appreciate some of these things that you guys go through with motherhood. I don't know about the ugly part, but that's another story. But with the weight gaining, with the mood swings, oh man, that mood swing, that was one. That was the worst. The mood swings, and some of y'all take it. And I know some of y'all do it on purpose, because y'all use it as an excuse to treat us bad. I know some of y'all do, and then y'all want to start crying. Oh man, that is so annoying, but it is part of the pregnancy. It's part of the pregnancy. She said, "That's right. Clean it up."
Meaning you gonna get in trouble later.
No, but seriously, it is true. Because I've seen and I've heard a lot of men who treat their wives or girlfriends differently because they have now put on these weights, but not realizing or not respecting the fact that you didn't meet her with all the weight. One, so when she adds on all these extra weight, you had a role to play in that. So instead of complaining or cussing her out or making her feel bad, it is your job to help her lose some of that weight, or like I said, accept her as she is. And sometimes love goes a long way. If you show them some love, and they know that's an issue for you, they themselves will try to get on track. But if you treat them badly and poorly because of it, I mean, I understand you make a little joke. You gotta be able to make some jokes with your mate. See that right there? If you ladies can't take a joke, then there's something wrong. But with some love and caring, they themselves will try to take it off. And some of you get comfortable with it. But either way, like I said, if you have to put that weight on, either you help take it off, or with exercise, or with exercise in the room, or with love. Treating her poorly, a lot of women, because you're so emotional, that does not help you lose the weight, because now you feel bad because of what he's saying to you. Then you go into eating, because some women eat to take away their stress. So now she's getting extra weight, unnecessary weight, because of the way you're treating her or talking to her. So you men that's listening, pay attention to that. All right. So now let's move forward with after the child is born. After the child is born, Chandra, what are some of these things that you guys deal with after the baby is born? Let's start with the between 0 and 13.
That's a big big stretch.
Because
if you mean if they live past 4?
If they live let's think between 0 and 13, because we don't have too many times, because I would love to break it down, but we don't have that much time. So we're going to take from 0 to 13, and then take it from 13 to when they're in college, because between those ages,
a lot happens. A lot happens.
The first 13 years is structuring and all that stuff, and after that, and even with that, it's a lot of things that can happen between those. Let me hear some of those things you faced and how you dealt with them.
So first of all, you speak from a place because you were married when your children were born. So
not my first.
Well, not your first, but the last 2.
Right.
Right? Okay. So many women, myself being one of those women, was single moms, and with me, I had to work 2 jobs, and because I was underemployed, I worked full time on one and about 30 hours on the other one, and that was just to keep a roof over our head. It wasn't anything flamboyant like people now buy the MJs for the babies and the coaches and the jewelry and all that kind of stuff. It was none of those things. My role was making enough money so we could survive. Even to the tune of when my daughter was 8 months old, I was homeless. I actually slept in my car with my daughter.
8 months old.
8 months old.
Wow.
Because I had a car and rent, and I couldn't pay both. And because I had 2 jobs, I felt like, let me keep the car so I can get to and from both of those jobs, and then I'll figure it out. Long story short, my brother friend at the time, I don't know why I went to her house. I don't even remember. And I told her, she was like, where are you coming from? I was like, well, I had to give up the apartment. Right now we're staying in our car. And she about lost it. She was like, are you serious? You actually are sleeping in your car? I'm like, yeah, we slept at the mall where the old Sears was. And she was like, girl, if you don't get those clothes and come over here and stay, they're going to take your baby. And at the time, I didn't think anything of it. And that's why I tell people, be mindful of how you judge people and how you view people. Because you've seen on the news where this lady was sleeping in her car at the Walmart, the Walmart that we on Forest Hill and Jock, and they took the kids from her, and everybody was like, "Oh, she's such a bad mom," and
Oh,
you know,
wow.
yeah, it was a couple of years ago.
Oh, okay. I was
Yeah.
gonna say I didn't hear about that.
Yeah, it was a couple of years ago, and I immediately went to the lady's defense because I'm like, had that been me and they had found me, they would have deemed me a bad parent as well. But it was just I could not afford it. So from 8 months old till till the time where the young lady helped me out, I was able to muscle through. And then the hardest thing was working the two jobs, making sure you have somebody reliable to take care of your children, that they don't get molested or something bad happen to them, because you run the risk of that being a single mom. You do run, and you run the risk of it. Let me say this: being married too, because sometimes you have foul spouses or foul family members. So those were my aha moments. And then I think as mothers, period, I know for me, my family used to laugh at me because before my daughter was born, she had a library. So I had books, I had CDs. When she was in my stomach, I would let her listen to music, and she did come out literally born wise and well beyond her years. So much so that some of the things she said me want to pop in the mouth, but she was so right that I couldn't do nothing but laugh. Like, oh my gosh, I never forget a time when I think she was like 5 years old, and I had went back to school for my bachelor's degree. And after the third or the fourth class, I withdrew from school because I'm like, man, this is too hard. I gotta work. I gotta do this. And I never forget. I was driving her to school one day, and she was in the vehicle. She was like, I don't know why you being a chicken. And I looked like, who is she talking to? You don't do anything but sit home, and now you don't want to go back to school. You need to go ahead and go to school and finish with Auntie Nita, which was one of the girls from church, and finish your degree at 5. This is what she said out of her mouth, like out of the sky blue. We weren't talking about school, anything. She may have heard me tell somebody else that I withdrew from the class or whatever. So she's just been one of those unique kind of beings. I always had like a little smart mouth on her, but smart to the point where she would be telling the truth, and it would just be like God would use her to keep me in check. And then from there, just being an advocate. I think most mothers know how to have that flight or fight mentality. You can do most anything. You can talk about us. You can talk about. You can even talk about your mom and your daddy. When you come to my child, it's a different breed. It's a different ball game. It's a different fight. And I think most parents are born with that. Not all parents operate from that place, but most parents are born with that. My babies are my number one, concern. My babies are my number one priority. And from birth to 13, I think that was my big aha moments. And the last thing was, and I will see what the audience say. The last thing was knowing your child. I never forget when my daughter was in kindergarten, and the teacher told me that she was a perfectionist. And they were like, she wants to have her work correct. I'm thinking, well, shouldn't she want her work correct? So know your children. Know your children, know their potential, know their capacity level, and make sure that you're an advocate for your children. Don't let somebody else define your child and tell you what they can and cannot do. But I knew I had been working with my child since she was born, with ABCs and all that kind of stuff. So when she went to grade school, it wasn't a matter of, them teaching her. It was a matter of them enhancing what I had already taught. And so much so, I ended up having to move her out of that ladies' class because we were not jiving. So that's about it in a nutshell.
That's an awesome story. How about you guys? What are some of these things you dealt with? Let me hear.
Belinda said work and child care.
Some of the struggles out of the
Kalia said not relentless. These are ladies that know my daughter.
Where you say? When I was born, I can tell you some of the struggles my mother went through. Possibly not with me as her first, but with my little brother, definitely. And even growing up between 1 and 13, the fact that she didn't have a car at the time,
mm-hmm.
that plays a big part especially depending on where you live. You know, places like New York
Right.
where transportation is all the time, you don't have to
Mhm.
really worry about that. You know what I mean? But places like Florida, Texas, Georgia, the islands, you know,
Mhm.
you need a vehicle.
Right.
You know, you need a vehicle to get by, to go and buy things, do some of these things that you necessities that you want to take care of,
Yeah. And attend functions for your children also.
and attend functions.
And hope your children participate in functions.
Right. Those are some of the things. Now, how many of you guys have children over the age of 15? How many of you guys have children over the age of 15? Um, One of the struggles I went through with my daughter, well, not really a struggle. I just wanted to throw that in there because it's not really a struggle, and because I want to thank God. You know, I want to thank God because He blessed me with good kids. You know, even now that they live with their moms, but He blessed me with good kids. I was able to be in their life when they were born until a certain age when me and the mother split. But I was able to shape them and mold them to how I needed them to be. You see what I mean? You've seen my kids,
Yes.
and they listen.
They do.
Yeah, they listen. They're good kids. They're nice kids. They try not to get in trouble. Only thing with Victoria, she's shy. She's very shy, and she's like a pushover. You know, Angeli. No, you touch Angeli, Angeli's gonna put it to you. You know, but Victoria is like a pushover. You know, so I had to tell her. I said, "Hey." And one time, some kids skipped her, pushed her, and skipped her in the line, and she's looking at me like, "I'm like, what you looking at me for? I can't beat them up for you." You know, tell them that to get behind. You know, I said, be a little more stern. You know, even at school, sometimes it'd be like 2 days till she's telling me something that happened. I said, did you tell the teacher? No. I'm like, don't do that. You know, first time, make sure you tell the teacher. You know, if they don't do anything about it, they don't take care of it. I give her permission. I ain't gonna be lied to y'all. I
Don't do
give her
that.
permission. I say, if somebody hit you, make sure you're not the one to start the fight. That you're gonna be in trouble with me. But if they hit you, you told the teacher don't do nothing about it. They hit you, you hit them back. You know, because once they start hitting you and they can get away with it over and over, then they're gonna start bullying you. Nope, hit them back. You know, make sure you tell the teacher first. See if it happens again, hit them back. Now, when the teacher bring it to me, I'm gonna say, "Hey, did she tell you?" Yeah, she told me about it. Like, oh, okay. I'll be like, okay, well, I'm gonna tell the teacher straight up. I told her to defend herself because if she told you and you didn't do anything about it, you didn't bring it to the other parent. You see what I'm saying? She has to now defend herself. That's self-defense. I don't want my kids to be bullied at school, coming home feeling like they want to kill themselves. No, that's not happening. You see what I'm saying? But I told her, do not be the one to start it, because if you start it, then you're gonna be in trouble with me. I didn't go and send you to school to fight. But if it comes to you, make sure you do your role first. You tell the teacher. If it happens again, you know, especially a third time. A third time, then you make sure you hit them back. You know, when it comes to me, I'll deal with it. But she's not gonna get bullied because she's such a pushover. Everybody do whatever with her. I'm like, no, don't do that. Don't do that, because I'm not gonna be around all the time. You see what I'm saying? I'm not gonna be around all the time. So y'all may judge me on that. I don't care. That's mine. That's how I'm raised. You know, because I have to look out for the future, what can possibly happen. And we have too many cases where bullies happen and the kids are killing themselves over because of bullies and all of that. No, I'm not having that. I'm sorry. The other thing I wanted to say, let me read some of these comments first. Right, Latoya, children are very active. Wait, say, what do you say? Balancing work and time with the kids. Balancing work time and the kids, that's actually something I started talking about from the previous show when I got cut
Mhm.
off. I had to actually redo that. I'll probably do that with Nick when he's here. I think he's here next week. I'll probably do that with him, or I'll do that on my own. But that's definitely work, balancing work and time with the kids is a big point, especially if you're a single mother. You know, especially if you're a single mother, and especially if you end up having to work two jobs like yourself. I know it gets hard. I know it gets a little crunch, but I have to say to you to find a way to spend time with your children. You know, whether I don't care if you're working 10 jobs, you know, you have to find a way to balance it out somehow. Even if not every day, but you have to find a way to spend some time with these kids because uh, the time from birth through 15, those are learning curves.
Absolutely.
You know, those are the time that you have to take them, to shape them, to mold them, to make them into young men, young women. You know, and if you're not there to have them listen to you, and that's why sometimes it's too late because we let them get to a certain age, and then you want to give them principles, then you want to make them listen, but then it's too late by then because you have let them get away with so much when they were younger. Now they're like, who are you? You're like a stranger now. You see what I'm saying? You're like a stranger. You're like a friend. You know, so they don't even want to hear what you have to say. You know, what you want to say goes through one ear and out the other ear. So you guys have to somehow, some way, find a way to balance that out. You know, I work hard. I work crazy during times of the year, but I always make time for my kids either after or sometimes during as well. Take them out, spend time with them, see what's been going on, and so on and so forth. John says, right, children are very active. Says 24. Bring me the deck of cards back from Coast. Say, hey, Queen, go ahead. You want to say something? Who? I don't see that. Go ahead and read it for us.
So Kalia, in regards to, says, my personal experience in your child's sexuality, I know it's a hard topic of discussion for parents. The struggle of being supportive and loving your child in spite of their sexual preference is so accepted in today's society. For them to be gay, they start recruiting your kids in middle school. Wow, that's a, hey Tanya, that is a big, that is. You said the magic word, Kalia, and I think loving them unconditionally because that's how God loves us. If we had to put a standard or a level of what is accepted and not accepted, that's society doing that, and I'm not going to condone it or justify it, but, you know, it's no different than fornication, it's no different than lying, it's no different than gossiping. The consequences are different, but in God's sight, sin is sin. So, of course, you know, society will say, well, if you're doing this, then that's less than that. Or you're doing this, that's less than that. And really, God is saying He wants all of us to obey. And funny enough that you should say that because even as an adult, you know, I question myself as to how do you look beyond a person where they are to see them as God sees them. And that is a big, big deal. How do we look beyond a person and love them and sees them as God sees them? And God sees us all in His image. Now, what we do and how we behave, contrary to His word, is totally night and day. And I myself have, you know, have found me learning to extend grace because why? I need grace. Me learning to look beyond what a person may be dealing with because of what I've had to deal with in my own. As well as a lot of times we have to look at what the person may have experienced. You know, early on in their life, we were out at South Bay tonight and we sort of kind of had a class and a class, right, Keena? And we we're talking about.
Okay, is there?
Yes, Keena's there. She was the one who was saying that you're 24 and all that stuff. You didn't hear her say preach prophet. You didn't see that.
Hey, Keena.
And so, what we were saying is sometimes people act and behave certain ways because of things they've gone through as a child or something that our parents may have gone through and we witnessed them go through it, and so then we behave a certain way. So all of those things, because we didn't make ourselves, we can't add, like the Bible says, we can't add a height or decrease a height from ourselves unless we cut our feet off. But other than that, we have no control over that part. So we can only see, do, act, treat people, whether they're our children, whether our family members, whether our co-workers, whether our business partners, or even our spouses, as God loves and sees them. And when we operate from that place, then He Himself can do whatever else that needs to be done. And I hope that answered your question, Kalia. So Stanley, what do you have to say about it?
I didn't hear the whole thing that you read.
More or less, her child is practicing lesbianism, and she said it's very hard for her to be supportive of her child because of it's so accepted in society, and a lot of times society recruits children at a young age. They make it a fad, and then it ends up becoming a lifestyle.
Right, that is very true as far as society recruiting, because we talked about it. Well, not the exact thing, but we talked about somehow the way society lures some of these kids into stuff. Even in the cartoons now,
Right.
you know, you see some of that going on, and even in schools. You see what I'm saying? I was looking at this thing online. They had I think it was either the library or at a school somewhere where they had a drag queen. They call it drag queen read or something like that. I'm like, what? Is that what we're promoting now? You know, and when you do things like that, kids being young, something may happen that's fascinating to them. You see what I'm saying? I don't believe kids should be exposed to some of that, especially at such a young age, because their minds are like a sponge at that time.
Right.
You know, and they're taking everything in, and some of these things they take in, they don't know what to do with it except to follow. You see what I'm saying? So even in the movies, even with cussing right now, things that they used to bleep out back then, they just let slide now. You know, but most importantly, in some of these cartoons that we watch, even Adult Swim, it's not even on a special channel. Of course, kids are gonna watch it, especially with the ones with the mothers working late. You know, of course kids are gonna watch it, but they know why they put it there. And if you add the adult to it, kids are gonna be more prone to want to see what's going on. You see what I'm saying? So I agree with you. A lot of that is being taught. A lot of it is